So yes, after watching the Super Bowl, I thought we should start there today briefly. And think about this, guys, because one of the things I thought we would do for the show today was we don't have to do it today. We could do it for tomorrow, but biggest botches of all time, like just absolute flubs, in hockey. And it doesn't have to be today. And I would have had this to you earlier, except I had no power until about 5 minutes ago. But it was something I was thinking about as I was running around the house, charging up everything I could from portable chargers that we have.
Well, I feel nice. I feel happy in the sense that the New York Yankees are no longer the evil empire in professional sports. It is the New England Patriots. They have superseded the Yankees as the evil empire because everybody hates them. Everybody, like I had a phone call from my mother at 9 o'clock this morning, spitting out swear words and Italian swear words about Tom Brady winning another Super Bowl. I can't talk about the Super Bowl, just.
Oh my gosh.
I actually, the thing is, it's like I'm not a Patriots fan, but I respect what they've done, even though the accusations.
I mean, my gosh. I mean, the guy's been to how many Super Bowls now?
6.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of pro teams have sort of studied the way the Patriots, do things, their ability to, maintain a high level of excellence. I mean, obviously, we don't have the same cast of characters that they had in their early Super Bowls that we have now, and somehow they've managed to do that. That play is so fascinating to me at the end for multiple reasons. I mean, at least. And if it was a normal type situation where you had an average NFL running back, you could actually sort of feel sympathy. Okay, they were trying to surprise.
Yeah.
It was a high percentage pass. They were, ganged up, as even Carroll said after the game, that they had their goal line stand package. They, being the Patriots, had their goal line stand package in, and he was just trying to cross it up. And he had his, his receiving core in, but they have Lynch, who, Lynch, even if he's going to run, is hard to pull down. I mean, he's such a strong one-on-one, one-on-four runner.
Yeah.
That you got to give him all the cracks that you have to get the ball in, and you're going to assume that he's going to get it in.
Yeah, and he's gonna have time. There were a couple crazy things about that. As that play's ending right there, the weird thing before that play happens, okay, everybody, I don't know what you guys were thinking in your head, but I'm thinking, why the hell aren't the Patriots calling timeout? That's what kept coming through my head, right? Because they're gonna score, and they're letting the clock. They're basically just losing the game. Like to me, the Patriots had 3 timeouts. Why aren't they calling timeout? And that's what I'm thinking to myself the entire time they're setting up. And obviously, in retrospect, the Seahawks were putting in this other play because they had it. And if you're going to go against the goal line defense, I mean, I was a quarterback growing up and everything. If you're going to go against the goal line defense with a pass, you go outside. You don't go inside. There doesn't make any sense to go inside because the linebackers are lined up. The guy who intercepts it is lined up out there, and he can say all he wants to about I anticipated the play and all that stuff. In my opinion, in his head, what he was doing was going to the goal line stance. Like he was running towards like that. Like he immediately jumps off the ball and thinks I'm going to go and try to pick off. If he hands the ball off, right? That's got to be his first instinct.
He's supporting the run.
Right. He's running to that spot automatically, to that exact spot you're trying to throw to. You're actually throwing into the fire. Like if you're going to play action fake there or whatever, you're rolling out and you're throwing to the outside.
Two points of conversation that were going on at every Super Bowl party, including mine, at that moment were why Belichick didn't take the timeout and should the Patriots let them score? Because if you let them score, I was surprised they didn't take the timeout with like a minute left to go,
right?
And then let Lynch run it in the end zone or let them score. So at least it was 31-28, and then the Patriots would have the ball with I think 2 timeouts and a minute left. And to get the game tying field goal, the interception never came up in any.
You would never think to me. I mean, that never crosses your mind. There's absolutely no logic. There's no reasoning, unless the other team is going to pass the ball and you're going to intercept it to do what they did. And that
It was a great individual play by the rookie. I mean, he jumped the route. He saw the receiver cutting toward the middle and he got there first. It was just a great play.
I mean, It's up there though. I mean, in all-time sports botches, it's up there. I mean, it's got to be up there because I
Well,
think.
I mean, you could put it up there with Scott Norwood's missed field goal. I mean, it was a long field goal, but
Yeah,
still,
but that's nothing like this. I mean, this is like Kevin said. You've got a great running back. You've got 3 chances to do it. If you run the first time and it doesn't happen, you still have 1 timeout. They still have plenty to do. They still have plenty of options here. And
it's not even the greatness of the running back. It's a running back whose forte is grinding out these yards and bowling people over. Like he's built and he has a history of doing well in these situations. Like, and we had watched him the whole game. When it appeared he had nowhere to run, he'd get 3 yards. So he's just a tough runner.
Oh yeah.
And the funny thing is that Seattle had the reputation going into that game as being the tougher of the 2 teams, and it seemed like New England inflicted a lot more punishment, especially on Brady's 2 interceptions. Apparently, they broke the arm of one of the defensive backs on the after the interception, and then they concussed one of their defensive linemen when Brady got intercepted the second time. So as the game went on, Seattle's defense became less and less dominant because their players were getting injured, and you could see that in the fourth quarter because New England went through the Seattle defense twice like a hot knife through butter.
Right. No, it was a crazy. I mean, it was a fun, entertaining Super Bowl, but oh my gosh, And it was the only saving grace in the whole thing. I thought to myself was Kevin always feeling guilty about fan bases not getting their Super Bowls. Both these teams have seen Super Bowl wins, so that's the only salvation. Like if Seattle had never won a Super Bowl, it would have been that much more terrible to me. But this was like, okay, both these teams they just won last year, so okay.
I was glad you said that the saving grace wasn't some of the commercials because some of the commercials.
I want to talk about that quickly too before we get on, and I know we got to talk hockey, but then since there wasn't hockey during that much hockey being played during this whole period of time, the whole thing was this. This was the worst crop of Super Bowl commercials ever, in my mind. And there were a few that were awesome, but I do not want to be depressed by Super Bowl commercials. I'm just throwing that out there. This was the most depressing lot of Super Bowl commercials ever. Ever.
That nationwide insurance commercial made me want to go into my to drink guzzle a bottle of wine in about 3 seconds.
I know. That's how crazy it was, wasn't it? I mean, it was absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, there was no Doritos commercial. I mean, we had the one fun one of the Snickers, which I thought was the highlight. With Treyu and Buscemi. Buscemi. Yeah, like that was a fantastic commercial. But we got some great humor commercials, and we just didn't have those this time around.
Yeah, my favorite one was the Liam Neeson. Was it Clash of Clans? Yeah, the Clash of Clans commercial. I thought that was hilarious because he was doing a parody of himself from the movie Taken, and it was just I thought it was really good. I mean, I thought like most of the celebrity ones were good, although the worst one, personal preference, if I never see Kim Kardashian ever again, I don't have a problem with it. That commercial was a waste of 50 seconds.
Yeah, no, that was tough. My favorite commercial, well, I thought the McDonald's commercial was cool. Like the whole thing of like they're gonna give away food. I thought that was kind of cool. The loving it thing and going off that. Although the person I was with said, "I will pay twice if I don't have to call my mom and tell her I love her," which I thought was hilarious. That was good. The one I liked the most was the draft of animals.
Mm-hmm.
That was hilarious.
Yeah, didn't you think that could have been better though? I mean, because it
was a good concept.
It was a good concept, but it reminded me of one of my all-time favorite jokes, which is the big jungle football game when. And I don't want to tell the joke because it takes 15 minutes, but anybody who has heard the joke knows that it's one of the greatest jokes ever, where the lion and the elephant hold the draft, and the elephant wins the coin flip and picks the rhino first overall, and the lion is upset because he knows that Rhino's the only fullback, in the jungle, and it goes on and on and on. But so when I saw this, I thought it was going to be a takeoff on that joke, which is a hilarious joke.
Right.
So I ended up being a little disappointed by it because I wanted more. Like that had the potential to be by far like the funniest.
Yeah, that did. And you can see where it was going. I was really into it. And the polar bear like holding his hoping for Mexico. That was awesome.
Yeah. No, but I wanted more. But as it was, I think it stood up pretty well. But
yes. Yeah, and and this I'm not trying to be a prude here, but when the Super Bowl is supposed to be family viewing in a sense.
Yeah, I know where you're going with this.
Yeah, and you have the 50 Shades of Grey movie preview. The Victoria's
so terrible too. I mean, I'm sorry, but that movie came off looking so much like a Saturday Night Live skit. It was crazy.
The Victoria's Secret commercial. Well, don't get me wrong. I don't. But I'm at a Super Bowl party with a bunch of 8, 9, 10-year-old kids, sons of my friends, and like they're like, what's that, Dad? I'm like,
like, why do women always do commercials in their underwear? He asked me. I'm like.
You'll find out.
Cracking up at that, I know. And finally, before we move on to the show, I had to discuss this too because, Katy Perry, shown here crossing the river Styx, is the Katy Perry halftime show was phenomenal. I'm gonna throw it out there. I thought it was awesome.
I did too. I agree with you. I thought her floating around out there singing, it was unbelievable.
And I didn't see it until after because I had a bunch of kids and there's a halftime tradition with us. We watch old hockey fights.
Nice, I like that.
So we watched the 1980 through 1984 Buffalo Sabres. Watching guys like Mike Foligno fight. And then I watched it later on, and I thought she did a pretty good job. I thought mixing in Lenny Kravitz and Missy Elliott.
I like that new tradition that people do. Like they had these other people. Like last year, I think, didn't it? Because they would bring up people.
Yeah.
And it's cool because she's doing all these wardrobe changes. I mean, you could tell when she was singing Fireworks at the end that she was friggin' exhausted. Like it had to be a really tiring couple minutes where she's running and doing all this stuff and changing costumes. And she's trying to hit these high notes in Fireworks, and she was losing it. But this tiger. Let's talk about this for 1 second. This tiger that she rides in now. I was in a band, and we always used to try to get the record company to do things on budget. Like we want for our tour, we want a drum shield. So what we'd like, maybe chips in the dressing room beforehand. We never in our wildest dreams wanted a giant tiger that we could ride on through a football stadium. Nor did we think we'd ever get that approved. This is unbelievably impressive. That's what I kept thinking. I'm like, wow, what record company?
That's got to be a lion, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, it's a lion?
Yeah, it's a lion.
I thought the song was The Eye of the Tiger.
No, it's Roar.
Roar.
Yeah. Roar.
The Roar of the Tiger?
Roar of the Lion.
Roar of the Lion.
I'm pretty sure it's a lion.
I think it's Roar of Tiger, bud. I do. I mean, believe me, I'm in a family that has to listen to Disney Channel a lot. And I think that I'm not sure. Maybe I'm wrong. Somebody in the chat room would tell us. But
yeah, they will. Yeah.
All I kept thinking was, how big are you when you can go to your record company and say, I want to ride in on a giant moving tiger? How big are you suddenly, because I never could imagine in my wildest dreams getting to the point where I could ask a record company executive for this. This was just unbelievable. And then her God Bless America at the end, as a good Canadian should, always bless America. Isn't Katy Perry a Canadian?
I don't think so.
I didn't know that.
I thought she was. Maybe I'm wrong.
I'll check that, but I don't think so.
If not, it's just facts. Who knows? Anyway, let's move on. We'll pretend she's Canadian for the hell of it. All right, let's just go on to the show then. Okay?
No, she's from California.
She's from California. There's some Canadian
Barbara,
connection
California.
to her. There's some part of her world where she lived in Canada.
And it's not Friday either yet.
I got it. It's Monday. It's welcome. Better dress warm today.
Well, she was married. She was married to a Brit, so maybe and Canada was a territory of Britain. So.
I know. Oh my gosh! Holy freaking hell! Yeah. Anyway, I got another story, but I won't go into it now.
Yeah,
All right, let's start here.
Save that for another day.
Groundhog Day. By the way, you can now get a clock that's alarm is the sequence of of I got you babe and all and the guys saying what they say for Groundhog Day.
Cold outside.
Yeah. I know, you can actually get a clock that has that alarm. And how cool was that? Tell me that's not awesome to wake up every day to. All right, here we go. Monday, February 2nd. Bill Murray's best movie.
2015.
All right. Hello, Hockey World. How you doing? It is Monday, February 2nd, Groundhog Day, 2015.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Kevin Allen of USA Today Sports, and it's 1 month till the NHL trade deadline.
Rack on, Kevin. Nice. And I'm Eklund, and I want that month to go forever because it's Christmas around here. And you're watching Hockey Buzz we're watching the Hockey Buzzcast on Hockey Buzz. We'll do it that way. This is the podcast where we always try to run the ball in at least once when we can win a Super Bowl, and we give you all the information that you need to know about the hockey world going on. And I want to start off with a trade rumor that I just heard right before this in honor of the trade deadline, Kevin, because and I updated about 30 players on the rumor chart, so we should do a lot of rumors today because it's a fun time to do that. There's a lot of stuff going on. But I heard that Santorelli and Cody Franzen have been offered up as a package around. So this is, these are, Santorelli we talked about before as a possible move. Cody Franzen, I still believe deep down is going to sign again with Toronto, but this was the first time someone said a package. They mentioned Vancouver as a possibility. They're both UFAs, so that's a little tricky, right? But Kevin, what are your thoughts on that kind of concept?
Well, it's interesting. I don't know what you gain by packaging them together unless you have a team that wants them. I mean,
right.
I can see sending them together if you have an inquiry, but to try to package them together, I don't see how that's an advantage. To me, you put each guy to the highest bidder and see what happens. So it'll be interesting. Both those players are, I think, desirable players. There's no doubt about it. But I wonder why they wouldn't get Franzen signed.
I'm with you.
I know Mike would know more about that, but. It just doesn't make any sense to me. I would try to get him signed. You have to, you still have to play with players. So,
right.
Well, according to the offer that was made over the weekend, Elliot Friedman from Hockey Night in Canada reported that the Leafs offered him a multi-year deal. I found out that it was a 3-year deal at around $4.6 million, and that basically. It might be an opening offer, but for a guy who's going to probably be shooting for money close to what Niskanen and Orpik got in free agency last year, that's an insult because he's been trying to get a long-term deal from Toronto for 3 years, and they've been continuing to go to arbitration or it's been a holdout. I don't think this team has ever been serious about signing Cody Franzen to a long-term deal, and I don't think it's going to get done, and I do think he's going to be traded. Now, the rumor that's coming out right now, it makes sense in one thing right off the top. Both Santorelli and Cody Franzen are BC boys. Santorelli is from Vancouver. Franzen is from outside of Vancouver. The Canucks have long been rumored to be interested in Franzen. Bieksa being out for 2 months is probably a factor in this. But Santorelli was with them last year, got hurt. And so, I'm a little skeptical about whether they would pay a lot to get him back, but he has played well. The only thing I can think of is the deal last year with the Blues and the Sabres, where they paired up Ott and they paired up Miller, both UFAs, and the reason they did that was because Buffalo got a first-round pick. If Vancouver was willing to offer their 2015 first in a deal. I know they have a couple prospects. I saw their minor league team on Saturday, and Hunter Shinkaruk and a couple other prospects that are pretty decent down with the Utica Comets. If they could get a player and a number 1 pick, then I think that's plausible. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it works.
Well, I think that's what the idea is, because the person who said, Cody Franzen, apparently the word out there is that the Leafs are looking for a second for Cody Franzen, right? That's the asking price that we've heard.
That's the starting price. That not. I don't think somebody's going to offer a second and the Leafs are going to say done. Otherwise all this. I mean, over the weekend there was a lot of talk about.
I do. I disagree there because he's a UFA first off, and this is such a good draft. I mean, if you have gone down the path of trying to sign him and you can't sign him, the second is pretty darn good for him.
I mean, no, I'm not saying. I'm saying they want a second, but I think they want a second and something else. I don't think it's just going to be a second-round pick. I mean, I grant you this draft is deep, and they don't have a second-round pick because they traded it in the Bernier deal. But I think they want more than just the second-round pick. I mean, there was a lot of stuff going on this weekend. I mean, Dave Nonis and Steve Casper, their pro scout, supposedly were on a scouting trip that was pre-planned, but just by coincidence, they were in Manchester. Scouting the Kings AHL affiliate, and there's been scouts from LA following the Leafs the last week, and there's been talk about Franzen, talk about Phaneuf, talk about Stefan Robida that you mentioned.
Mike Richards is up again.
Right, and the thing is, it's like there's a couple prospects down with Manchester. I don't think that they were down there to look at Mike Richards, but if they're going to make a deal like Franzen and they're going to expect a prospect back, then it makes sense that Nonis and Casper were there to look at some of their prospects.
I mean, historically, a player of Franzen's ilk would go for a second-round pick and a B+ prospect.
Right, exactly.
I mean, that's just the way the system kind of works. So, I mean, I wouldn't see any circumstances that you could squeeze that into a second-round pick. Although it does get a little complicated because, oftentimes teams when they're making a trade with a contending team will point out, well, look, your second-round pick is almost a third-round pick.
Mm-hmm.
That's their argument. So, your first-round pick is close to being a second-round pick. So, let's move up and get that first-round pick.
And in the instance of Los Angeles, right now they're a borderline playoff team, so their second round pick would be in the middle of the second round. So, right. I mean, to me, Franzen and LA is almost a perfect fit in the sense that LA doesn't want to take on long-term salary for the reasons we've discussed many a time. They don't want to take on Phaneuf if it's $7 million for 6 more years, but Franzen being a pending UFA with the uncertain situation of Voyanov and Franzen's contract being I think it's $3.3 million, they give up a prospect and a pick for him and then let him walk at the end of the year, and then they find out what happens with Voyanov. It's a perfect fill-in situation for the Kings.
I do agree, and that would be a nice. It would make sense for the Kings. Although I heard the Kings have more interest in Gardner, but
but
what can they do? Now Bob McKenzie is reporting something that I think you've mentioned before, Kevin, and I've mentioned as well. That he believes Mike Green will be moved at the deadline. Kev, what are your thoughts on that one?
Well, they were debating it for the longest period of time, and they had they had originally said they were going to move him, and then teams called and they weren't going to move him. So I think if he is going to be moved, that's a tough decision for Washington to make because I like this Capitals team, and anything could happen in the East. So you wonder what kind of trade that's going to be. I don't think it can't. I mean, can it be the traditional trade that we see where you get prospects? I don't think so. I think they're going to want to try to make a hockey trade out of this, and we'll see. But it's so hard for a GM to just allow player to just go into free agency. They all talk a good game, but it's hard. It's hard to do that.
Oh yeah, it is.
Cap space is an asset, but it's still hard to think like that because on social media you're going to get beat up and your fans are going to question you and so.
Well, look, do research on it. And I know you've done this research. We've talked about this before too. It really aren't that many instances where you can draw back to a team losing a player for nothing and it just destroying them. Like there's not I can't think of when has that really happened?
Boomeister in Florida, they let him play out his option and they got nothing, and they were hoping to try to make the playoffs as I recall, and they didn't. And I don't know that was the final spiral because they didn't make the playoffs for a long period of time, but it's a tough.
Well, I mean, This team didn't fall off the face of the earth in terms of failing, but you can say that the Paul Stastny departure from Colorado to St. Louis.
That's the one I was thinking.
It's sort of a domino effect. Everybody had to move up. Everybody had to move into a different position, and I think it really has affected Colorado in the sense that they had to replace him with a Jerome McGinley. Maybe that hasn't been a good fit. I think there are a few other instances out there, but
their defense has been why they've fallen apart.
I'm going to take issue with that too, just because I think the Avalanche situation is more about, in my opinion, just the difficulty of trying to duplicate what they did last season when they won so many one-goal games, and a lot of that is just confidence and karma and believing in yourself. It's just hard to come back and do that. And I think, as I've said many times, I think Wad knew they were headed for a downward trend because of just what he said in the preseason, that it's just hard. That they seem to win. They seem to win last season because of the togetherness they had and all the things going right, and you can't count on that happening 2 seasons in a row.
I mean, I know, going back to Green for a second, Washington may be shooting for what the Rangers did with Callahan last year, getting something that they can help them now. Because, they have as good a chance as any in the Eastern Conference to go forward and, maybe get to the Stanley Cup final. I can't see them trading Green. I know that he's got his faults, but his $6 million plus salary is a problem, and if they want to add somebody, they maybe need to clear that. But I can't see them moving him for, say, a draft pick, and then probably having to take that draft pick and move that someplace else to get a guy to replace Green. There's no point in that. But if they can get an asset that they can hold on to for a year,
I guess the question would be: do they need to replace Green?
Right.
Niskanen can certainly play that role. I mean, Green probably is more dominant at it, and they want to be more defensive anyway, as a general rule. So, it's a real fascinating development, that's for sure. If they do trade him, because I thought ultimately they would decide to hang on to him. They've vacillated for sure about it. But I think they've played so well that you wouldn't want to disrupt what they got going. It seems like everybody's sort of buying in now to what Trotz is doing, and so they might try to keep it together.
And if he's moved, okay, I'm sorry, Mike.
Go ahead.
If he's moved, where do you see possibilities, Kev?
Well, Detroit for sure would be interested. I mean, they've been coveting him for a couple of seasons. He's perfect for them. They'd like a power play guy. He wouldn't have to do any heavy lifting defensively on that team. He just becomes a guy doing a job as opposed to a guy expected to lead him on that team. So I would say that they're a possibility. I think you've talked about the Sharks as well, haven't you? Talked about them needing a defenseman. So there are certainly a lot of options for them if they're going to move him.
You could make a case for Dallas as well, because right now, Dallas, after trading Gonchar, their number one defenseman right now is Alex Goligoski.
Right. And I've heard Dallas also might have interest in Nick Grossman. I didn't put that on my chart yet, but that they might have interest in getting him back. They did not like losing him in the first place.
Well, and you reported yesterday about them having interest in reacquiring Robidas, which maybe they would have qualms about 2 more years, but $3 million is not heavy salary anymore, and
depends how healthy he is. I mean, now the name that other name I want to throw out there. This is we'll do a little bit of rumor chart here since we're here at this point. But Green, I kind of agree with you, Kevin. There, I had Detroit top there at 40%. But then the Caps keeping him at 20, and LA and San Jose at 20. Grossman there with LA, obviously. I've heard LA has interest in him, so the Kings aren't going to get all these guys, but the Kings are definitely trying to. They're putting feelers out in a lot of different situations, right? Yager, now the name that came up over the weekend for me that with Yager that was interesting for the first time was Tampa, and I had not heard Tampa connected with Yager at all. And then suddenly, a person I trust down in Tampa said, yeah, that's an option. That's not, basically was how they put it, and I still keep hearing Nashville with Yager and the
Yeah,
Islanders. So.
I listed that today too. I've heard that as well. I also wonder about Pittsburgh too. I know there's a lot of history there, and you're both good and bad. But boy, like he could be a really good fit for that team when you think about it.
And there have been whispers out of Pittsburgh for about a week that there's there's something going on there, a possibility of bringing Yager back. But the only thing I'm skeptical about Tampa Bay is that I have a feeling that if Tampa Bay is going to make an acquisition at the deadline, it would be on defense with Gudas out and with Carl out. I mean, I know that Carl's probably supposed to be back before the playoffs, but Gudas is probably going to be out for most of the playoffs. And I think this team's aspirations are to make the Stanley Cup final, like everybody who makes the playoffs. But I think they have the ability and I think they have the depth to do so. And if they do, I think they're going to need another defenseman to sort of supplement those injuries.
Right. Right, now here's Kevin's article from today, which is a good one. And I always, this is one of my favorites. There's certain people who write this article like a month out. Kevin, you've always been, I've always loved when you do this one. The NHL trade deadline, who's being coveted 1 month ago, posted just a mere 42 minutes ago. So let's go through some of these.
So it's timely.
498 shares, Dan. In 42 minutes, that's pretty freaking good. Anyway, so let's throw this out there. Obviously, Yager, and you have Yager on here as well with Pittsburgh.
Yeah, this is by the way, it's just a sampling. There are a lot of guys who I could have put on here, but I just singled out a bunch of guys for that I had sort of decided they were timely for whatever reason. So
yeah, no, this is a great. You and Eric Tahashik does a great list like this always. Lucy we've talked about as well, and you say presuming the Canes don't get him re-signed, he could fit into many teams' top 6 forwards, skilled player, 12 goals, 42 games. I agree on Lucy a ton, and I've mentioned before this. But Methot is a really interesting name to me because he sort of has been not out there in many rumors, and yet here's a guy who should be out there in rumors.
Well, I think he's picking up steam now. The thing about him is that he can do a lot of different things. Like he's a hitter, he's historically he has a fair number of hits. He blocks shots, and he contributes offensively. Like his numbers are decent, and he has a lot of experience. He's a 400 game guy, and I think, and it's not going to cost you your future in order to get him. So I think there are going to be a lot of teams that are interested in him. I think he's one of those guys that's sort of flying under the radar a little bit, that the people in the hockey community know more about him than obviously fans who are more heavily concentrating on guys like Yager or Vermette.
I think the hesitancy with Ottawa. I think they inherently they want to re-sign him because he works so well with Erik Karlsson as a pairing.
Yeah. Well, they should. Yeah.
Yeah, and he lets Karlsson roam free in the offensive zone, and he stays back, and he's a tough, defensive-minded guy. But if it all depends on whether Methot is looking to make. He's a limited offensive player. He's not a two-way defenseman. He's more of a one-way guy who's really good in his own zone and somebody who's really physically accountable. You don't want to pay a player like that $4.5 or $5 million, but in this really light free agent class, he could get that. So and we know that Ottawa is always fiscally sort of restrained. So I don't know if they want to pay that much.
No, I agree. And now you also mentioned Mikhailuk out from out in Phoenix, and I like him a lot too. He, I know he didn't have a great run in Pittsburgh. I've heard Pittsburgh again possibly wanting him back, but and also LA. 700 games though, Kevin. I didn't realize he had played 700 games.
Yeah, it's a lot of games. He's played a lot of games, and he's a guy you plug in if you're looking for a guy who you just want in to come in and play defense. That's what he does. He didn't play well, or didn't adjust well to playing in Pittsburgh when he was there. So,
right.
for whatever reason, he just wasn't comfortable in that system. He always looked a little bit uncomfortable. So it'll be interesting to see where he ends up, but he will end up somewhere for sure.
Kevin,
you mentioned Petrie as well. I'm sorry, Mike. Go ahead.
No, Kevin, Don Maloney came out this weekend, GM of the Coyotes, and he made comments that took a few people by surprise because he essentially said that almost anybody on that team is tradable. I mean, I know they're down lower. I think they're third last in the standings right now, but he didn't say like I wouldn't trade Oliver Ekman-Larsson, who's one of the best defensemen in the league. Were you sort of surprised that he came out and made such a expansive comment?
Yeah, I think he must have been absent on when he took the How to Be a GM class when they tell you that the quote you're supposed to say is, when you're playing this poorly, anyone is tradable, but you don't get in specific. And to be honest, how many of us were surprised that NHL.com had a story about that Ekman-Larsson, being potentially traded? I know I was when I looked on the website. But I don't believe he meant that. I think what he was really saying is, and because he's come out and said that he's not so sure he wants to trade Yandel. Well, if you're not sure you want to trade Yandel, then you sure aren't going to trade Ekman-Larsson. So if I was Maloney, and I'm sure he's saying the same thing, if I'm going to rebuild or reset, they're not rebuilding, they're resetting in Arizona, then maybe he's thinking, okay, we're going to build around a defense that has Yandel and Ekman-Larsson and Gormley and maybe Connor Murphy. Okay, so now we got 4 defensemen, and now up front we've got Samuelson and Dome, and pretty much everyone else we're going to build new, and maybe even get a new goalie at some point, which is very surprising.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mike Smith, he was. I think it was the game against Ottawa that he let in 7 goals. I mean, he did not look, even though he only allowed 1 goal to Toronto on Thursday, he did not look confident.
It's rare, Mike. I agree. It's rare that you can see a goalie lose his confidence as much as Mike Smith has lost his confidence. Like when you're watching him play, you can see it in his stance. You can see it in the way he handles the puck. I mean, all these things he used to be very strong about, he is not there right now. And I like Mike Smith's one of my favorite people. He's a really funny guy, really good guy. I hate to see it.
And the funny thing is that after they traded Dubnyk, they've played Mike Smith every game. They haven't played their backup, whoever their backup has been. They've been calling up 2 different guys. They haven't played him 1 game. It's been Mike Smith completely.
Well, you've got to find a way to get his confidence back. And I agree with you about him being a good guy. He made the national media tour that I go to every year in New York. 1 year, and I actually gave him a tie with Henrik Lundqvist for the best dressed guy in the media tour, because Lundqvist generally wins it every year, but he came in with a very nice suit, and I said, oh my gosh, you're rivaling Henrik Lundqvist, and nobody dresses as well as Lundqvist. And we had a lot of fun kind of talking about that. He was really a fun interview. But I agree with you. It's sort of similar in my mind to starting pitchers in baseball. Like, you can identify who the good pitchers are, but you don't know from year to year whether they're going to win 15 or 23.
Right.
Goaltenders can get into those type of rhythms too, and this is, to me, an off year for Smith. Now the big question is, has he lost it, or is he just going through a bad year and he'll be back next season when he figures it out?
And coincidentally, I mean, Arizona hasn't been a shutdown defensive team like they were, like they have been in the past with Dave Tippett. I mean, I don't know if is it the chicken or the egg? Is it the fact that they're not good defensively, and is that the reason why Mike Smith is struggling, or is the reason that they're struggling is because Mike Smith is not playing well?
Yeah, the answer is yes to both. It's probably both.
Yeah. I wonder about Tippett, if he's going to be okay with this rebuild. Like, I mean,
it's difficult. I mean, what you say is, okay, he just re-signed,
right?
So there's that, but there's a new owner,
right?
So even Maloney, who I think has done a tremendous job, like he kept that team competitive when they had no business being competitive.
Oh, absolutely.
He was designing on a dime, and now, but a new owner has come in, and I don't know how he views the job that Maloney has done. I don't know how he views him as a administrator. So I think anything is possible now in Arizona. I don't think we know. That's one of my missions this week, by the way, is to track down the new owner of Arizona and talk to him about all of this.
Because I think Tippett would be a very sought after commodity if he was out there.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
As high as we've seen, with very similar to Barry Trotz in some ways, like that. It would be just like maybe,
I agree with that. Yeah. I mean, maybe. Yeah. No, I think it'd be pretty close to what Barry Trotz went through.
And there are some teams where you could see him really fitting in, like a team that I cover all the time. But yeah, there's just teams that you could definitely see where Tippett would make sense. He's definitely coached certain kinds of players well. Great defensive system. Yeah. I would like to see. I don't know. We'll see how that plays out. But and what we are seeing now too is unquestionably the separation of powers. I agree with you. We're really starting to see some teams that are falling out of this thing. Like the teams that are just on epic losing streaks. Like in some way, beyond Toronto, whose losing streak is just crazy. I mean, beyond them. I mean, and Mike. I mean, this losing streak in Toronto. I mean, just at what point does this stop?
I don't think it's going to. I mean, because and the funny thing is, like even the people who were complaining before Randy Carlisle was fired, that this team is not accountable defensively and they just like to play wide open offense. They want that wide open offense now because the team playing a responsible defensive style can't win a game. I mean, you saw it on Saturday. I mean, they had one really good gilt-edged scoring chance until the Kessel chance with 5 seconds left. Kadri got stoned by Mason in the first period, and other than that, they really did not have a good scoring chance until they won a face-off with the goalie pulled, and Kessel had a wide-open chance on Mason and missed the net. They have their scorers have absolutely no confidence, and they're playing a style that's not conducive to the talent base on that team. So I almost think it's not being done on purpose because no organization is going to want to lose on purpose in spite of their fan base probably wanting them to. But I think they're sending a message that we need you players to play two-way hockey, and I think there's a little bit of pouting going on with this group because they want to score goals, and it's just there's no buy-in here, and you're gonna one of my compatriots, Jonas Siegel from TSN, wrote something that the core group in Toronto knows. That most of them, with the exception of Phaneuf, like each other and like playing together. They know a diaspora is coming. They know that these guys, a lot of their players are going to be traded throughout the league, and they think there's a little bit of like a moroseness going on, and that's what I think is going on with the Leafs, and I think it's going to continue.
Yeah, I think that's there too. Go ahead, Kev.
Speaking of losing streaks, we really need to just take a moment to reflect and enjoy this 14-game losing streak the Buffalo Sabres are on. I mean,
yes.
This is of epic historical proportions.
Include the playoffs. The New England Patriots won more games this year than the Sabres have won.
And what's remarkable is, and I was looking at this today, I'm thinking about going to Buffalo as they chase the record. Like they're going to play Montreal on Tuesday, and that we would think that would be 15, and then they get the molten hot St. Louis Blues on the night they could lose their 16th, and then they have their home with a chance to tie the record that was set by the Washington Caps in must have been 74, 75 maybe, somewhere in that area, and tied then by the San Jose Sharks in their second year when they lost 17 in a row. I mean, this is a really remarkable situation. I mean, 14 games in a row, losing in regulation. They have not won any game since December 27th. And they haven't won in regulation since December 11th, I believe, against Calgary.
Yep. I doff my chapeau to the Buffalo Sabres. But the funny thing is, Kevin, I was listening to the Sabres pregame on the way back from something on Friday night. Listening to their lineup, when your number 2 center is Torrey Mitchell, you're in trouble. I mean, this, and they've had some injuries, but a guy like Cody Hodgson, who I think has 4 more years at $4.25 million, he got healthy scratched against the team that drafted him in the first round. He's not playing center anymore. He's not playing. He's playing on the wing, on the 4th line, and he's been playing so ineffectively that they scratched him as a healthy scratch against the team that he probably would have been most motivated to show something against. They've had some. They've had some.
They were
problems,
losing by the average of 1.85 goals a game. I mean, that's a crazy number, right?
They're last in goals for, goals against, shots on goal, shots against, and just for good measure, they're last in face-off percentage. They can't win in the face-off circle even.
The puck possession, they've got to be way far behind everybody else in.
Yeah, they are.
They're minus 34, worse than the Edmonton Oilers in goal differential.
In this 14-game losing streak, they have been outscored 61-21. They're minus 40 in those 14 games. I looked all this up before. I mean, it's really, really remarkable. And we know that this team is trying to win because we saw them go 8-3 in an 11-game period. Not so long ago. These players have some pride. To me, what sums it up more than anything else is we all know Josh Georges is a very respected NHL defenseman, desirable defenseman. You'd like to have him on your team, and he's minus 27. And he is not a minus 27 defenseman. No. He's out there giving it his all.
Let me throw one other thing in perspective here. If you take out that 11-game period, have only won 6 games all year. That's the other crazy thing. So they're 8-3 in that 11-game period, but beyond that, they've only won 6 games.
Well, here's one more thing too. They're 6-1 in the shootout. So if they weren't any good at the shootout, if they, suppose they had lost those, they'd have 8 wins right now.
They have 8 regulation wins, or is that not even right?
Zemgus Girgensons is one of the best guys in the shootout. He's done very well this year for them. But and the thing was, that month, that stretch when they had those 8 wins, Jonas Enroth was unconscious, completely unconscious. I mean, they got goal scoring at that time, but they got. I think his save percentage in that stretch was around .950. And that's the only way that they won games. After that, he's been mortal. He's been 900 or sub 900, and that's that. And like I said, this has all been done by design. And of course, in the last month, you're going to see Stewart traded, and as you said in your article, Kevin, Stafford is going to be moved, and they might move some other players as well. Yeah. So it's going to get worse.
Their top story on BuffaloSabres.com is an interview Rob Ray had with Rhett Warner. All right, so I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be like a pain, but this is I'm not, we're talking about, there's not much to talk about.
But this is a truly remarkable, losing. So we've been playing NHL hockey for a lot of years, almost 100, and to have a team performing at this level, and really, it's really not the players' fault. I mean, Mike's absolutely right. I mean, they're in a reset, rebuild mode for sure, but on top of that, they've had injuries, and they're giving it everything they got. But they can't buy a goal. If you watch them play, they just can't score goals.
But the fans are not ridiculously upset, Kevin. That's the thing. They came into this year with a realization that, and the thing was, it would be one thing if they were resting all their laurels on the number 1 draft pick next year and everything was centered on McDavid or Eichel. But I mean, you look at the organization. There is reason for hope. They have Zadorov and Ristolainen. They have the couple of kids from the U.S. junior team. They have Sam Reinhart. They have, I would say, 10 to 12 pretty good prospects. So it's going to take a few years, but there's reason for hope. And I would rather be the Buffalo Sabres than the Toronto Maple Leafs right now in terms of the positioning of the franchise to succeed in 4 or 5 years. I would rather be the Buffalo Sabres than the Maple Leafs.
Well, for sure. I mean, that goes without saying. I'll tell you what, another reason for hope, and it really speaks to Mike's point about how the Sabre fans, who are really good fans, get this. I looked it up. Their attendance average this season is 18.6. Last year, it was 18.5. So their attendance has actually gone up by, minuscule. I mean, basically, it's roughly the same. But, nobody's bailed. Nobody has said, I'm out of here. This is AHL hockey, because they do understand, what's happening. And I agree. I mean, this team will wake up in 2 years and suddenly discover they're Stanley Cup contenders, because they have a lot of assets, and they only have a 20% shot if they win.
Right.
The race to be the worst team. They only have a 20% shot at ending up number one, but they're guaranteed to get one of the two, and that's really all you want. Right. If you're going to get Eichel or McDavid, I think you feel pretty good about it. And I'm actually going to write a story this week too about we all have talked about this draft as being a good one, but I'm going to quantify that a little bit in a story that's probably going to run Wednesday or Thursday, where I'm going to talk about, I think you could be finished somewhere in the top 7 or 8 worst teams in the league and get a really good player. I think they're, Strom, Ryan Strom's brother is a good player, and there's a couple other. There's a forward, and there's about 4 or 5 defensemen that are pretty good. That I think if you are in the bottom of the standings here, the 7 or 8 teams are all going to get a good player that's really going to help you.
Yeah. And the new draft lottery percentages. I've been looking at this because the Toronto fans really are focusing in on this because there's nothing really else to focus on other than that and trades. But with the new percentages, number 1 went down from 25 to 20. But if you're picking if you have the 6th slot or the 7th slot, it's like 6%, 8%. I mean, you still have a pretty good chance of winning the lottery if you're 6th or 7th or 8th in this upcoming lottery. So, can you imagine what would feed into the Southern Ontario Western New York rivalry if the Sabres finish dead last, have the longest losing streak in the history of the NHL, finish 30th, lose the lottery for the 2nd year in a row, and Toronto wins?
Connor McDavid, yeah. No, it's fascinating, and you're right. I mean, the teams now, I wouldn't call it a pretty good chance, but they have a real chance now. Like,
yes.
Like 6, when you're starting to get up 6-7%, that's a real shot.
Mm-hmm.
That's almost 10. I can almost convince myself, that it's going to happen, and the odds are good that somebody out of that top 3, is going to get Connor McDavid. I don't have the odds in front of me, but I think it's better than 50% that someone outside the top 3.
Yeah,
it's 45, 55 out of the 3. Yeah.
20, 15, and 10. So that's 45%.
Yeah. So it's 55% that chance that someone outside the 3 worst teams will get Connor McDavid.
That's pretty crazy. I mean, that's really astonishing. So I do like that a lot. I mean, I love the fact that we have that excitement. It's going to be. Can we say that maybe the most exciting ping pong ball lottery, that we've seen, maybe obviously since Sidney Crosby?
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Oh, unquestionably. Yeah, unquestionably. Yeah.
Because the stakes are so high. I mean, the stakes. I don't think it's hyperbole to say that Connor McDavid is a generational player. I mean, I've seen him. I haven't seen him as much as many other people have, but I've seen him play a few times, and he's just got that kind of talent. I mean, it may take a year or two, but yeah, I mean, he's a guy who could change the face of a franchise. So, I mean, I think that the consequences for this lottery are the greatest since the Crosby one.
And to be brutally honest, in this situation, I almost would rather see him fall outside the 3 worst teams.
Yeah.
Just to shake it up, I think it would be a good story for the league.
It would be.
That if he doesn't end up in Buffalo or Edmonton, nothing against those cities, just the fact I would like to see him not go to one of the worst 3 teams. I just would like to see him go up a little higher, just to see what that looks like, because this is the first time we've done that.
Kevin, there'll be more conspiracy theories than the grassy knoll.
Yeah, that's
I'm
right.
throw it out there that I really want to see him go to a Canadian team. just for the heck of it, just because I remember talking to Eric DeHashik and saying, okay, it's been a long time. When you had the Cranky Hockey Radio show, he said it's been, the Canadian teams haven't gotten any of these generational players in a long time.
Well, like it would really help a franchise like Ottawa.
Yeah,
for sure.
Or Calgary even. I mean, Ottawa could use it obviously, but
Calgary is going to be in the playoffs.
Yeah, Calgary's going to have like a 1% chance if they don't make the playoffs.
Right.
I mean, if they miss the playoffs, they'll be 14.
Yeah, they'll be right there. 13. I know that's for sure. Well, I'm going to write a program. I've figured this out in a few weeks. Where we can put the names of the teams exactly where they are, and then every day do like a little lottery and see what happens.
I think there's already a website that's got it, not McEichel, but there's a website that's already got a draft probability scramble.
Yeah, find that website. We'll play around with it every day, and we'll just for fun we'll see who wins the lottery day, because it is, and then how that plays out, because it is really fascinating. Do you think Ted Nolan is going to be the Sabres coach next year, Kevin?
Yeah, that's such a tough. I really feel bad for him. He did a good job with that team last season, and he was trying to do a good job this season too. But it's too great a task, and I think we all saw this coming. That in the rebuild, you don't want to be the first coach; you want to be the second.
Yep.
And he's the first coach in the rebuild. So that's all coaches are hired to be fired, but rebuilding coaches are hired to be fired sooner. So.
Well, now he started sitting out guys. This is you really gotten to that point, right? Even though it's just like Cody Hodgkin.
But you have to do that. I mean,
yeah.
I think he did the best he could under the circumstances. He's tried to be serious about his attempts to win every game. It's an unwinnable situation in his position.
I think he gets another year, Eck. I think because he's had to live through this, and I think
give him another year.
Right, but I agree. I agree.
He's necessarily going to be there when this team's really good.
No. I think he's a caretaker coach. I think he's basically there. Yeah. He'll be there maybe for the first year of whoever they draft in the first round this year. They'll bring Reinhardt up, or maybe they play Reinhardt in the American Hockey League. But I'm not sure. But I mean, I think they'll give him another year. But Tim Murray has yet to bring him his own coach.
Right.
So, I mean, there's been speculation that, he would go to somebody tied with the Ottawa Senators. I've heard, Luke Richardson's name mentioned, and he was talked about as possibly taking the job with the Senators when they fired Paul McLean.
Right.
But he didn't want to take the job, but maybe in a couple of years he'll be ready to take the jump into the NHL, and that there's been speculation about him. So, and he works well with kids, so, I mean, that would be a perfect next step for the Sabres.
Yeah, I just got a text saying that the Ducks and the Sabres are talking about Tyler Myers. I'm going to look into it, but it's just something that just came through. I know this has been discussed before, but this is a guy who doesn't send me things too often, so for what it's worth, it's definitely worth looking into. The price for Tyler Myers is crazy high, but the Ducks have a lot of assets. I mean, if any team could pull it off, the Ducks could probably pull it off. I mean, the Ducks could give them another defenseman back.
Well, no, the Ducks have what the Sabres need, and that's forward prospects. The Sabres are okay on defense. Even if they trade Tyler Myers, they're fine. They have 3 or 4 really good young defensemen. What they need are forward prospects. And when we were talking about Detroit before, it wasn't them asking for defensemen from Detroit. It was asking for Dylan Larkin and Anthony Mantha and whoever. It was forwards. Yeah. That's what I think Murray's looking for Myers.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's all the time we have for today, guys. But good show, very quick show. Enjoy the games tonight, and for sure we'll be back tomorrow. Hopefully we'll have more power here. We didn't have electricity for a while today. Kevin, I had a quick question for you before we go. So you got 13 inches of snow, I heard, something like that out there?
Yeah, we did. We got hammered. Started yesterday, and then it continued, through the night. We actually had someone kind of come and shovel our driveway, yesterday, and then after he was done, another 6 or 7 inches fell, last night. So,
That's
but
always fun.
it's really beautiful out now. They had canceled everything yesterday, so that made it easier. So
I
people.
was surprised though. Is it true that this was the largest snowfall in Detroit? Like that? That's not true, is it? I mean, I
Well,
read somewhere.
not out where I live, but I don't know about downtown Detroit. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, we got some of the places here got 20 inches.
Right. So as cold as you are, yeah. Because I was thinking, because we've had a lot of 20-inch storms there. I was wondering, and maybe that's the nor'eastern thing, or I was just wondering if 13. I guess that's just as cold as you guys are. You guys don't get those big walloping snows. Is that true?
Well, we don't get the 2 or 3 feet. Basically when we get hammered, like if we have a couple or 3 snowstorms over extended period.
Right.
But we've had some mild winters recently as well. So, any snow. We went. Gosh, was it 2 years ago when I didn't have to pay anyone to shovel our snow, and then
Wow.
last year we had 8 or 9 times where we had enough snow that we needed a plow. So.
Well, we got a foot over the last 12 hours, but it's nothing like that 6-foot storm that we had a few months ago. And thankfully, the lake has frozen over, so lake effect is finally over with. So we can keep it under 2 feet. We'll be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. And last but not least, I wanted to mention the fact that I think the Puppy Bowl is that there's just needs to be more defense played in the Puppy Bowl. That the scoring has gotten out of control. That I don't know. It's all about the stars now, and it's really lost its umph. As cute as the puppies are, there was just way too much scoring this year. I don't know if you guys caught the Puppy Bowl at all.
Sorry.
Yeah, it was like 85 to something. It was up there scoring wise. So yeah. Anyway, a lot of people.
I was looking for the lingerie bowl. I couldn't find it.
A lot of people complained to me about the fact that I tweeted it out last night. But the Puppy Bowl is a big deal around here, and we hate to see it go down this same path as the NHL All-Star Game. So anyway, I just want to throw that out there as well. All right, guys. Without the buzz, it is just hockey. We will talk to you soon.